Once we are fully live now, I'm just going to, okay, I think we are live already. So I'm going to introduce everybody and we'll get started. All right. So let me see. Yeah, so we are live now. Once we are fully live now, I'm just going to, okay, I think we are live already. So I'm going to introduce everybody and just a second, get started. All right. How do you close? So let me see. Okay, so hello everyone. Nice to meet you here again. So excited for this new program for today. Today we're going to be learning UX design for mobile design, and the person that is going to be anchoring this program is Franklin. I remain your co-host, Adebimpe Malasho, the lead product designer for Framer Dojo. And Franklin, people are just joining, so we have to give them like 3 to 5 minutes, and then you can introduce yourself again, and um, we can you can go fully into the program. So, and I'm so sure that we are going to really enjoy this program. So please make sure, guys, that you stay tuned from the beginning to the very end. So let's just wait for a few minutes and then we get started.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Wait. No. Wait.
Yeah, I think we have people joining in already.
Yeah, so I think people are joining already now, then we can start.
Okay.
Yeah, awesome.
All right.
Okay, so back to you, Franklin.
All right. Thank you. Joining in already. Okay. Yeah. So good day, guys. Welcome back to week 2 of our training. My name is Franklin Uka. I'm a product designer at ALLC. I also work as a contract designer for some Web3 brands, basically. Yeah. So today going to be looking at mobile app design. And what we're going to be covering today, we're going to be covering the fundamentals of mobile app design. I know last week, Felix took you guys on the principles of UI UX. He tried to go to the basics of what UI UX is about, He explained color theory. He explained general design principles, and also he was able to cover web design, where he had a task and he was able to convert that brief to an interface design. Okay, so for this week, we're looking at mobile app design. So let me just give a brief summary of why we are looking at mobile app design. So UI UX is not just about web, it's not about only mobile, it's about anything that has to do with a software product or a digital product. So when you have a digital product that has an interface where users interact with that product, you definitely need an interface design. So for example, your laptops, your mobile device, you have this interface where you get to touch things and it gets to respond to you. So similarly, when you have social media apps, you have banking app, you have websites, you're also able to interact with these platforms and they respond to you. Okay. So I would get started in this presentation I have today, and I hope other people join as we proceed. So also, if you have questions, feel free to leave it in the comments, and I will be gathering those questions and we'll attend to it, I think midway into the lecture, okay? So just give me a minute and we'll be starting soon. Okay. Yeah. So like I said, mobile app design. So what is mobile app design? Mobile app design refers to the overall experience a user has when they interact with a mobile application. I give examples already. Bank apps. If you're joining from your mobile device, you're joining with YouTube app. We have WhatsApp. We have food delivery app, food ordering app. Anything you can basically think of, any solution or any online service you can think of, probably has a mobile app. And so when you have a mobile app, yeah, the focus is how can we create apps that are functional, efficient, and enjoyable to use. You don't want an app that you claim to that it does one thing, but when you look at the app, you're unable to navigate, you're unable to tell how to use the app or how to achieve the purpose of the app. Okay. So the next slide I'll be looking at is what are the key principles behind mobile app design? So when it comes to mobile app design, yeah, you have to consider three things above all others. The first thing is this app usable? I want an app that allows me make transfers. I want to be able to send money to my loved ones, and I want to be able to receive money from my friends. How do I achieve this with a mobile app? So the app needs to be as intuitive as possible. There needs to be almost no barrier to entry for me to be able to achieve the end goal. I don't want to open a mobile app where I'm expected to send money, but then it's asking me for the wrong thing. A bank, can you hear me? Okay. A bank app is supposed to be directly for what it's intended to do. There is no need to have unnecessary screens. There's no need to be too flashy about it. There's no need to show elements or design elements that are unrelated to that particular field. So in terms of usability, we need to be able to minimize user frustrations by simplifying tasks on the app. Make it as simple as possible, make it as intuitive as possible. So that's one of the principles of mobile app design. The next principle, we have accessibility. Your design needs to be accessible to people of all kind of people. Basically, you have to consider general maybe disabilities. So most times we tend to as designers, we tend to fall the trap of designing for ourselves. We feel, okay, I know what looks good as a designer and I can be able to implement this on the design. But when you don't consider things like some people might have difficult to read small fonts. Some people be have issues with identifying some colors, or some colors might be too bright for some individuals as well. So if you don't consider all these things when you are doing your design, you are going to have a poor UI design for your mobile app. So the third thing is desirability. So usually some people put this first. They want the design to look good before it's usable or accessible. It's intentionally placed third because functionality and accessibility comes way before how appealing that app is. So you need to be able to make your app look as visually appealing as possible, something that it registers in the memory of the users and it gives positive emotions. So I'm telling you. Another thing you should note would be you need to use aesthetics and animation to engage users. Okay. So Felix also spoke about persona. So I want to briefly touch about persona here. He mentioned how persona helps you understand the user you're designing for. It's also very important. It's extra important again in user app, in mobile app design. When you're designing for users, this is an application that is buried or it's going to lie in the phone of your users and they're going to use it almost always, depending on the industry you're servicing. So you need to consider these users. When do they use your application? At what point in their daily activity do they use this application? For example, when do you open your bank apps? Do you open your bank apps to make transfer? Do you open it to check your balance? Do you open it to buy data or subscription? Do you open it just to see the services that the bank is offering you? So these are things you need to consider. You need to consider at what point do this user get to interact with your with the application you are designing. You need to also consider things like the user's demographic, their goal, their behaviors. You can't be designing an app for Nigerians, for example, and almost all your icons or almost all your text is in French or another language. So you need to consider the types of terminology you're going to use, the type of grammar you're going to use. You might want to even make it as specific as including some pidgin if you have that demographic of people who speak pidgin. So all those are things you need to consider when you are making your mobile app design. So also persona help you as a designer empathize with the user. If you can't resonate well with the user, your app is going to be undesirable, basically. Let me put it that way. You need to make a design that connects with users so that once people receive this application, once people download the application and they open the application, they are excited about having the application on their device. I don't know if you've had apps that you've downloaded and you just don't want to delete the app. Not because you are using the app, but because you like how the app looks, you like the navigation of the app. So that's one thing you need to be able to achieve when you are designing a mobile app. So another thing I want to talk about would be user story. So user story basically is like a guide into what your design is going to achieve. So you need to be able to identify who you are designing for, what you are designing, and why you are designing it. So again, this class or this series of training is trying to cover the fundamentals. So we're not trying to go too in depth into what each of these things mean, but I want you to kind of have this at the back of your mind because it helps inform you when you are trying to get ideas or trying to get inspiration for your design. So user story, again, like I said, it's a guide. It helps you prioritize the user needs basically. Again, I would say this is not graphic design. You are not trying to make a design that looks cool, even though your design looks cool in the end, but that's not your primary focus. Your primary focus is a design that is functional, a design that serves its purpose. So by answering these three questions, who are you designing for? What are you designing and why are you designing? You'll be able to properly understand what you need to communicate in your design. So we're going to go into the process of mobile app design. And yeah. And so the first step in mobile app design is user research. So again, if you've noticed, I keep emphasizing on the user persona. Who are you designing for? Because your design needs to be functional. That's one of the key things that differentiates UX design and graphic design, for example. Graphic design should be functional, but it doesn't have that requirement to be as functional as something like interface design, especially when it comes to mobile app. Your application design needs to work. It needs to do what it's designed for. Okay. So when it comes to user research, we need to know what is user research. User research involves trying to understand the people you are designing for, basically, and it's in form of two ways. We have the qualitative and we have the quantitative feedback. Again, this is kind of touching things on the surface. But when it comes to quantitative and qualitative, what I mean basically is you need to get some form of information about who you are designing for. Okay, in terms of qualitative, you need to understand their behavior. I've mentioned this before. You need to understand their motivation, their pain points. Say, for example, you have a bank app that you don't like currently, and you take it upon yourself to say, I want to try out and learn and design. I want to try redesigning this bank app. I'm not going to call any bank, but I want to try and redesign this bank app. So you yourself can be a user of this application. You could have a friend who is a user of this application. And when it comes to qualitative, you might want to understand what is the pain point about using this application. What is it that I don't enjoy about the current design? Those are qualitative feedback. Then quantitative is more about measurable data. For example, you might want to conduct a survey, maybe using Google Form, Google Form or any other kind of online form to gather data, because you need a lot of users' feedback to be able to decide on what you are improving. So, for example, you can have a survey and share with your friends, share with your family, share with your school group if you're in school, share with other focus groups, basically, and try to understand how many of them share this pain point with you. So, for example, you might want to include questions in the form like their age, range, do they have this, do they use this application, do they have the same experience or the same issues. You might have a list of issues and ask them to select which of these issues are they experiencing. Do they find it difficult to log into the app? Do they find it difficult to sign up? Do they find it difficult to find where their balance is in the bank app? Or other challenges, basically. You're just basically gathering information by asking questions. So that's just what user research is. User research is, putting it simple, is just gathering information. Okay, like I mentioned, there are different ways of doing this user research. We have interview. You could have one-on-one interview with other individuals. It could be other users themselves. It could be industry experts, maybe a bank manager. You can have an interview with him and ask him, what features or what offerings do you think your bank would want to show on the mobile app? You could have the survey I spoke about. Another way of user research is observation. So most times you might not be opportune to have large group to test with or to get feedback from. So what you could do is you could observe people. You could just ask your friend to check his balance on his bank app, and you will notice that some people are able to, if he has, let's say he has 2 or 3 bank apps, some people are able to get their balance quicker on some apps over more than the others. Say, for example, let me just call 2 banks. Say you have OP and you have Access Bank, and you ask a user to check his balance on OP and also check his balance on Access Bank. You could time how long it takes for him to get to his balance on both apps. That's observation. It's still gathering data. You're still trying to understand what is the blocker. Why is he having issue, or why is it taking longer for him to get his balance on one app compared to the other? So all these things are also counted as user research. And observation is one of the easiest way to gather data. You just need to find a group of people you are observing and just give them a test scenario and ask them to try something. Then you are able to gather feedback on that. It's very, very, very straightforward. Okay. Again, if you have questions, you could leave it in the chat and I'll get to that. So another way also is focus groups. Focus group is kind of broader than just observation. You could have, like I said, you could have a group of friends, close friends that you have. It might not even be your friends. It might be people that you send a request to. You could just tell them that, okay, I want to test out this application. Can 10 of you try checking your balance? Can 10 of you try recharging from this application? Or I'm designing, let's say the application does not even exist at all. You could tell them, I'm designing a new application for ordering food in Lagos. I want this application to be as easy as possible. You should be able to converse or discuss directly with the restaurant. So you could tell those group of individuals to, you ask them what are the features that they would see or they would like to see in such an application. They will give you ideas. That's part of focus groups. They give you ideas on what they think as users or as individuals that try to order food, what feature they would like to see in an app design. So one thing I would like to point out here is that your work as a user experience or UI designer is very important to any product you're designing for, especially in terms of mobile design, because you are kind of the person that has to materialize that design. So for example, you receive a brief. We're going to look at a brief very soon. You receive a brief, and then you are the one that's going to take that written document to actual design. So you can see the responsibility that falls on your shoulder to be able to imagine and bring out something tangible. It's not something that that you should take lightly, but not to scare you, but that's kind of how you should imagine your role. Okay, I've already mentioned how important user research is. It helps us understand pain points. It helps inform design decisions and ensures that the product you are designing is actually useful. Another way to put it is that this product meets user needs. But I like saying the product is useful because there are products that look good, but they're not useful. So the next thing is wireframing. So I know Felix talked on this also, but basically you've gotten your ideas, you've gotten some form of inspiration, you've gotten data, you've gotten feedback. You start sketching, you start putting that down on paper. So wireframing, you start with low fidelity sketches. It could be either on paper, it could be on digital. Most people prefer to use maybe tablets to be able to, or even PC to create these low fidelity mockups or low fidelity sketches rather of what the screens are supposed to be. Because unlike the way website has pages, mobile app also have screens. So you have different screens. So for example, you have the login screen, you have the sign up screen, you have the home screen, you have the chat screen. All those things are basically what you refer to as pages in website. Okay, but we tend to call them screens in mobile. So also wireframing helps you kind of focus on functionality rather than aesthetics. So you, at this point, you are not designing anything. You are still trying to understand the structure. How do you want to communicate your product to the user? Okay, what are the first things I want to show? What are the first elements I want to show? So when you are able to clearly identify your structure, you're able to clearly identify what your app is going to convey, then, only then are you allowed to proceed to the aesthetic part. But wireframing first, especially low fidelity, is very important at this stage. Okay, tools we use, I know we're focusing primarily on Figma for the purpose of this course, but there are still other tools as well. There's Adobe XD and there's Sketch. Okay. So the next part is the actual design. Now you've been able to identify the structure of what you want to communicate. Now you can now start making it look good. You start bringing in your colors, you start bringing in your fonts, you start bringing in your images, start bringing in other elements of design that brings your design to life. You see how, again, we kept the actual design for way down the line. I think this is a thought process. It's not something you think of from the start. From the start, again, when it comes to UI design, you need to consider the fact that you are doing a product that is functional, a product that serves a purpose. Before anyone, I know most people tend to say, oh, I love this app design. I love your design looks good. But behind that design that looks good, there's a function, there's a purpose for that app. So that's why you don't just jump into design. You don't just, again, if you really want to just focus on design and not the function, I feel graphic design would have been a better pathway for you. But basically, at this stage now, we're able to look into the design. We're able to start bringing in colors, like I said, bring in font choices. I know Felix talked about the styling and other things in the previous class. Bring in the elements. Okay. Yeah. So another thing we need to consider after the actual design is prototyping. Yeah. So now prototyping is actually a way for you to, I would say, create a better version of your application. What I mean by better is you're going to be able to link screens together so that you can simulate what the final product would be. So what I'm able to do now is I'm able to kind of show how a user would move across screens. How would a user move from the sign-in to maybe the home screen to maybe the listing screen? So you need to be able to kind of prototype, that's the word we use, but you need to kind of simulate, let me use a simpler word. You need to be able to simulate that process. You need to be able to simulate the flow. There are different screens, good and fine. There are different designs. You've been able to show your clients, your employer, which screen is for login, which screen is for sign up, which screen is for home. But they ask you, how do I go from sign up to home? And you're like, wait, let me show you the different screens. No, you should be able to simulate what happens when I click a button. So if I click a button, sign in, it should show the next screen after that. So another reason for doing this on mobile app design is because mobile app, unlike websites have a lot of pages. Not a lot of pages, actually, quite a number of pages. So you can have a website that has, let's say 10 pages, 6 pages, let's say 6 to 10 pages. But when it comes to mobile app, you find yourself doing up to, not up to, more than actually 100 screens. You could have a separate screen for login, a separate screen for sign up, a separate screen for forgot password, a separate screen for resetting password, like that. So you can see that in what you tend to categorize as one action, you can have as much as 10 screens per action. So because you have a lot of screens, the easiest way or the best way for you to present that to your client or employer is to prototype it. You need to be able to link these screens together so that once you are kind of previewing this design to the client or employer, they're just able to easily navigate it and quickly test it and give you feedback. That way, it's as if it's being simulated on mobile device. They can preview on mobile device and be able to leave feedback. So it feels like the app is ready, but the app is not ready. Because most times when people see prototype, they're like, what's left? This is the app. Why are we still developing the app? It gives that impression that your app is live, even though it's just a simulation. Again, it helps you test your design and get immediate feedback. Okay. So the next thing here is usability testing. Again, most of these things you might have heard in the last class. They are very similar. The difference is just more of where you are doing it, which interface you are going to be executing it on. Okay. For usability testing, you want to be able to, like I said, you have your prototype now. You can give that prototype to before you give it to your client or employer, you could give it to some group of people, maybe friends or people around you to test out this app. you will be sure to get feedback. Now, doing this is important because you don't want to hand off designs that are incomplete or designs that are not up to standard yet. You might be able to get one or two people to test your prototype and give you real-time feedback. So you can share with a friend and say, oh, I did this app for a restaurant. I'm learning design. Can you help me check this app prototype and tell me what I can improve on? You'll be shocked to know that they have feedback. Again, these are people that use. I'm not saying you might have friends who are designers. If you have friends who are designers, perfect. They will give you more critical feedback. But if you have friends who are not designers, they also use apps. So they can easily point out things that don't sit well with them. So the best testers are most times are not designers, because designers are more strict in terms of color choices and things like that. They might not see the function first. They might see design first. But you need someone that's able to see if that function is achieved first before you now look at the visuals. I don't know if you get what I mean. So that's what usability testing is about. Usability testing involves observing users as they interact with this product. So again, you could do it in a moderated way where you're able to facilitate and give task scenario to people who are testing, or you just give them the link and allow them to find their way with the application or with the design. You could just share with them and say, okay, here's my design, play with it, try things out. And they would be kind of be in an unguided situation, and they will try to navigate through the app and see point out things that are not right with the design, basically. So, and one thing you need to note here is that you need to be if you're preparing tasks or if you're preparing flow for people to test, you need to make your flow as realistic as possible. You don't want to ask them to do things that your prototype does not do yet. Again, it's not a developed app. Your design would not send money to someone else because it's not built out. It's not developed. It's just for testing the product real time. Also, you need to be able to note, be very observant. That's one thing that people fail to do. You need to be very observant. You need to take note of issues that users face. Someone might be trying to test the application or the design, and they are struggling to click the button because it's too small. And you just say, no, 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 that's not where the button is. The button is here. That's something you should note immediately. You shouldn't just direct the person to where you know the button is. Just imagine how you feel if you receive an application now. Nobody is there to guide you. Most applications we download, they don't come with instructions or guidelines. We just download the app and we find our way. Most times we're lucky enough to have tutorial videos or tooltips that tell you do this to access your account or do this to access this. But some other applications just throw you into it and you are left to navigate and find your way there. So again, we must be very observant to track those blockers along the way. What challenges the user face when they receive the design, and how are they able to navigate through this? Okay. And also, you need to be able to kind of identify, analyze the results, identify patterns. You would have more than one. If you are testing with more than one person, you would definitely have more than one person experiencing the same fault. Okay. And that's something that you need to be able to take note of and work on in improving your design. So I want to touch on some rule of thumb when it comes to mobile app design. So there are some kind of basic things that we should have at the back of our mind that kind of makes your design stand out. Okay. So the first thing is white space is good. So most times I had a glimpse at some of the designs, the assignments from last week. I'm not sure if the feedback has been sent out or if it has been completed, but one thing that stands you out as a designer is how clean your design is. It's not, oh, trust me, it's not difficult. It's not as difficult as it might seem, But there are the little things that you do in design that could basically distinguish you from other designers. So in terms of white space, what do I mean by white space? You can see this first design is all cramped up. There is no there's not enough space between each of the cards. Now you might be trying to fit in as much information as possible here, but then you make it difficult for the user to focus on each of the information. Because it's cramped up, I can't easily read the information. It's just packed. So especially when it comes to mobile design, I keep saying this, when it comes to mobile design, you want people to be able to access things quickly. You don't want them to struggle or pay, or not just pay. You don't want them to have a hard time using your design. Okay. White space, give gaps, allow room for reading, allow users to be able to read or scan through your application. You don't want it to be too cramped. That's one thing you need to note. Did I skip on? Yes. So accessibility, again, I keep talking about accessibility, and it's very important because nobody's going to kind of agree that they don't have some form of accessibility requirements. But I put it to you that most people have this default preference. But naturally, some people find it easier to read. I don't know if you can see what's here. If you can see what's here, you can type it out in the comment. But most people find it easy to read what is this? Why some people can't even see it. So why would you do a design that's that only works for a small group of people? You want those with supernatural eyesight to be able to look at your design and understand it. Why not do a design that is universal, that everybody can see? So those are the things you need to consider. You don't want to use colors that are difficult to read. You don't want to use font sizes that are too tiny. It doesn't have to be too big. It doesn't have to be too small. You can find a middle ground that works for almost everybody. Again, your design, one thing you need to understand is that in as much as you're trying to accommodate everyone, there are high chances that there will be a small percentage, like 5% of people who don't agree with your design choices. There might be people that are very strict and they just prefer tiny fonts. You might have friends like that who they just like tiny fonts. And again, they are a very small minority. You need to consider the larger portion of your users. So if your user, especially if you take, for example, now you're designing an app for older people, people with reading glass, and you're using this font size, you're just a wicked designer. That is the best way to put it because you're trying to suffer them. You want them to suffer to use the application. But yeah, you need to be able to consider your demographic. Now, if you don't know your demographic, if you did not do your user research, how are you going to know who you are designing for? So you can see why it's important to do all those steps before you get to the actual design. So another thing to note is consistency. You need to be consistent in your styling. I'll call it that. Now we tend to like flashy colors. Throw in this color here and there. Let's see. Let's make it pop. Let's make it glow. But that's not right. You need to be able to be consistent. If you're having buttons in your application, in your mobile app, why is the button on your home this shape, but the button on the next screen is this shape? It doesn't show, it does not show consistency. Again, in the last class, Felix talked about having your style guide and being able to use the same font or the same color codes across your design. It applies to design elements, it applies to design components. So when I talk about design component, what I mean are these elements of things that you use in your design. A button is a component, an icon is a component, a card is a component. We'll get to that later. All these things are like components. You need to ensure consistency across your design. Okay. Another thing is fonts. I know I mentioned consistency already, but this font topic still needs to be driven home. people like, excuse me, using too much fonts, using a lot of fonts. Design is not about who can mix the most fonts. It's about how functional, emphasis on functional. How functional is your design? So you don't want to confuse users. I'm telling you, you might not think it's confusing, but using a lot of fonts in your design generally is bad. Using a lot of fonts in your mobile app design is unacceptable. Okay. You might get away with it in graphics. It's possible. Graphics has this wide scope of acceptability. But in terms of UI design, in terms of mobile design, you need to kind of have on this understanding that you are trying to do something that is functional first, then appealing. So that's the direction you need to take it from. So another thing to talk about here is creating contrast. Okay. So you need to be able to know how and the right way to create contrast in your design. So most times people are able to create contrast by varying the size of the font. They're able to use maybe a font size for header, then a smaller font size for the body. Another thing you could also do is use colors. Okay. For example, I keep bringing back to the last class. We had a website that Felix was working on, and he was able to bring in the colors to show contrast in key areas like the CTA buttons, the CTA buttons. He was able to assign colors to those to show their significance. If you don't show contrast, people would not see your action points in your design. Okay, if I read through this first part, I don't know which parts it's more important. To me, the header is the most important because it's the biggest. But when you come here, you can see that okay, the header is important, but there is an action at the bottom here because it's colored. Okay, so you're able to follow that CTA and go to the next screen. So that's basically the all we have for the slide. I'm going to take questions now. Then after the questions, we're going to proceed to take on a live task, try out a design, and again, there'll be another set of questions after that. But let's take questions on this first, and we can proceed. Okay. So I have a couple of questions in the chat. Just give me a minute. So we have a question from Samuel Adekoya. He asked, why is it important to do a wireframe in the design process? So when you have an idea, it's best, any idea, it's best to put it down on paper. If you want to go shopping, if you want to buy stuff, you list out what you want to buy. Same thing applies to design. Your idea cannot be fully formed unless it's possible that you're able to fully form ideas in your head, but it's easier to put it down in paper. That's where wireframing comes in. You want to be able to break down this idea into these different bits, the different parts. You know that you want to design an app for ordering food. Okay, so what are the parts that this app would have? What are the separate screens that this app would have? Breaking that down into sketches helps you identify that you've been able to capture everything. So most times when you don't have wireframe, when you don't start with wireframe, when you don't start with sketches, you are sure to miss some things. You might miss some screens. You might miss the reset password screen. How do you even want to go forward into the design if you don't have your concept drawn out? That's even the first question. But it's important to start with sketching in order to, first off, identify what you want to design, identify the information you want to show in your design, identify the structure the order in which this information is going to be shown. All those things are what falls under wireframing. Okay. So we have another question from Daniel. It says, what's your best wireframing plugin app? I think, again, everyone's favorite so far recently has been Figma. Figma allows you do wireframing as well as your designs in one place and prototyping actually. So I would say that's one of the best you could actually use, especially as a beginner. Okay. So what are the testing platforms and are there premium or free platforms? So yeah, they are both. There are some platforms that are paid. There are some that are free. I think one of the ones we tend to use the most is Maze. I could drop the link in the chat. Maze.co, AZE.co. It allows you test your designs, check areas in your designs that could be improved. Again, it has, like other platforms, they always have free plans and paid plans. The difference is that both plans have the free plans has its limitations. Basically, you might not have access to all the features of the paid plan, but you will surely find some free platforms as well as paid platforms when it comes to testing. Okay. He said, Ebenezer says, okay, good evening. I just want to know, is a mobile app designer different from a web designer? Okay, I think there was a similar question like this in the last class where someone asked, what's the difference between web design and UI UX design? So I would say, is a mobile app designer different from a web designer? I would say yes. Now, when you're doing UI UX design, you don't start out by kind of deciding initially which platform you want to design for. Even though most people are drawn to designing for some platforms over the others, you as a designer might prefer designing websites than designing mobile applications. But ideally, as a UI UX designer, you should have the skill set to be able to design any digital platform, be it mobile, be it web, because look at it well, it requires basically the same skill. The difference is the platform you're designing for. If you are able to create wireframes, if you're able to do user research, if you're able to prototype, you should be able to design for whatever platform. But again, similarly to how you have mobile app developers or front-end developers, you could have people who just specialize in mobile app design, unlike web app design. Yeah, I hope that answers your question. So the next question by Marvelous Matthew says, how do you present your prototype for usability testing when it has not been built? So this platform I spoke about, Maze, allows you connect your Figma. Figma is the software you use. It connects your Figma design to the platform, and that way you are able to test out with your design. You don't have to get to the build. Again, you might want to test after you develop your app. Definitely, you need to test after you develop your app, but also you need to test after you've designed your app. You don't just rush your design and say start building this without even getting some form of feedback. That's very wrong. So by using this platform, you can plug in your or integrate your Figma file to it and be able to use test the design real time, basically. The next question is from Abdul Jalib. He says, is Adobe XD a website like Figma or a PC application? So Adobe XD is a software application, kind of like how you have Adobe Photoshop or Adobe Illustrator. And unfortunately, it's not free. They do have a trial version, I think, for 7 days or so. After that, you have this Adobe subscription package going on there. That's another reason why people like Figma. Figma is it's free. Uh, it's free. Yeah, you could upgrade if you want, but basically most things you need to use, most features you need to cover are already covered in your Figma free version. So that's one. Again, it allows you collaborate with people quickly. Say, for example, you're working on a design, you want to bring your friend into that design. you don't have to start worrying about your friend getting Adobe subscription and things like that or downloading the software. You could just go to Figma site and start your design. It just makes the barrier of entry less for designers, basically.
Okay, thank you so much, Franklin. So I'm going to introduce the CEO of Reeple to talk about Reeple before we proceed. Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. So can you guys see my screen? Yeah, I think you can see my screen, right?
Yeah. Hold on. I think I need to stop sharing.
Yeah, you need.
Hi guys, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, anywhere you're calling from. Yeah, so it's great to be here. Thanks a lot, Franklin, for that amazing session. So my name is Tommy and I'm from Ripple and just want to give you a quick overview of what we do at Ripple. So simply, Ripple is a cross-border payment and digital banking company. And what we pretty much do is this: we help freelancers and software developers and designers like yourselves on the call to easily receive payments, from their employers, especially, for those who are probably based in Africa or based in even other parts of the world. For instance, if you're based in Africa, in Nigeria, for example, and you work for a company in the US or work for a company in the UK, we can easily give you access to, a bank account to receive payments with ease. And even technically as well, if you're also based in the UK and you are freelancing for a company in the US. So Ripple can also still help you, receive um, payments. Yeah. So pretty much that's pretty much it. And aside from that, we also really focus on, adding value for our customers on other aspects. So for instance, we have webinars like this as well, but pretty much tended towards helping freelancers to be able to, focus on how they can gain access to job opportunities, how they can easily, gain access to a network of gigs that they can, use to improve, themselves and, also to improve their portfolio while earning, massively in the process, right? So yeah, so that's pretty much another value that we give. But outside that as well, um, Ripple, also pretty much helps customers, helps freelancers, in particular, based on this, to also gain access to a massive community of other freelancers and other gig workers, right? And when we talk about Ripple, the major essence for doing this is pretty much we ourselves are in the tech space, and we've seen lots of freelancers, lots of tech guys, struggle. So our major aim, our major goal is just to see how we could, add value to the community, how we could actually help to foster, a network of, you know, thousands and millions of freelancers across Africa who are delivering value and also, enjoying massive value with respect to gaining access to more job opportunities and also gaining access to a wider range of income. So yeah, so that's pretty much what Ripple is about. If you could see my screen, you could see what our app looks like. Um, Quite seamless, right? And one thing we also try to do is ensure that we help with the best rate. We help to also ensure that we charge you close to zero cost for all deposits on our platform. Yeah. So once again, why Ripple? Instant transfer fees, um, low fees, instant transfers, low fees, secure transactions, and also our platform is pretty much user friendly. And like I said, most important thing is the fact that we, beyond just making money, beyond just trying to give you access to our products, one major thing that we focus on is delivering value through impact and also creating access opportunities and networks for um, freelancers, software developers, and designers to be able to grow and scale up in their endeavors as tech and gig workers. So yeah. pretty much that's it. Happy to connect with you guys later. So just go ahead to the App Store or the Android Play Store and download Ripple. And if you're somebody who also likes to use the web app, you could just easily go to our website and yeah, and sign in on the web app. So you scan the scan code and access. Okay, yeah. So that's it. So I don't know if there's any question or anything you want to ask. I'll be happy to answer your questions either now or later. Thank you so much. So I will hand over to Ademi.
Okay. Thank you. Ademi, are you there? Okay.
Yes, I'm here. Okay, so that's Tommy, right? Tommy, thank you so much for that. And to also add, Reeple is also sponsoring this program, and Felix is going to be giving the details of the bonus campaigns that we are doing. So I think some people are able to complete all the challenges. We earn $10 each in their Ripple wallet account, and other things can be found in the community. If you are here to join the community, you can always drop your name or your comments um, in the chat, in the live chat bot, and we'll be happy to send that your way. Okay, so Franklin, thank you so much for what you've been doing. So I think we are going to the second phase now, which is practical session, right? And then you can see, maybe take other questions while at it. All right, thank you.
Okay. Just a minute. Share my screen again. Okay. Yeah. So thank you so much for that. We're taking some questions. I think we could take about 3 more or so that we'll get into the practical section. Some questions came in the chat. I need to know where I stopped. Okay. Okay. Just think. So Kenny asks, is mobile app the most important in UI UX? None is. I would not say either of them would be the most important. They are all important because they are all products. Yeah, you need to be able to give as much importance to, again, it depends on you as a designer. You might have affinity more for mobile app than web, or more for web than mobile. So it depends on where you find your strengths. You could get started there. Okay, the next question there is, how do you know which component, what to make a component and what not to? So components basically would be elements that you know you're going to reuse over time. For example, you're going to have series of buttons, you're going to have series of cards. So when you have those components, I'll call them elements, reusable elements. It's best to make them components. Yeah, I'm just rushing through the rest of the question so we can get to the practical aspect. The next question says, where does creating user flow come in this design process? So user flows come in when you are creating your wireframes. You need to be able to identify which screens the users get to interact with, and in which order they get to interact with those screens. Yeah. So the next question says, can you use user flow to design the hi-fi? High fidelity basically is once you have tidied up everything that has to do with structure. You've identified structure, you've identified screens, you've identified content, you've identified the order of information they are passing across, then you can proceed to high fidelity. So it's something you would have done in low fidelity or sketching. So the next question says, is mobile app being designed? If the mobile app is being designed with UI UX, can people have access to it. Yes, you could share your link, your prototype link to people to test and give you feedback. That's one benefit of Figma. You can't just have a prototype link that is accessible to the public for them to test and give you feedback. Okay. I think there are more questions, but I'll stop at this one. It says, if given product requirement document, is it important to follow the doc even though some like important features are missing? What do you suggest? So when you receive the product requirements and it's missing important features, again, it's kind of your role as the designer to advise in these cases, because the person preparing the documentation might be focused on aesthetics, or they might be obsessed with the function. So it's easy for them to miss out some important features. They might just tell you we need a social media app. They would not tell you they need login features. They would not tell you we need login with Google. There are some things as a designer you should be able to understand, because you are the one doing the user research. You should be able to understand that we need to have these things included. So that's kind of where the extra responsibility falls on you as a designer, and how you can navigate that. Okay. Yeah. So we're using Figma. Someone asked about the app. So let's proceed to our practical section. So for the practical section, we're going to be creating a couple of screens for an application. So for this, I have a brief design here. So the brief says dating app design brief. Design a modern dating app, basically. You need to create an intuitive, I don't know if you can see my screen yet. Increase. Yeah, you need to create an intuitive and visually appealing mobile interface for a dating platform that helps users connect, match, and communicate with potential partners seamlessly. The app should prioritize usability, engagement, and a sense of trust. So some key features to include profile screen, which should allow users view their profiles, edit information, include field for profile picture, bio, allow customization of preferences. Also, you want to have the swipe or match screens, core engagement screen, allowing people to browse to profiles. You want to have chat screen for allowing people to communicate with each other. You want to have the discover or feed screen that shows a list of profiles. Again, I hope most of the things I'm saying are not sounding too technical, but this is kind of how a sample brief. This is a very minimal sample brief, how it would look. If we are receiving brief for a full application, it's going to be a lot more detailed than this, a lot more specific. But for the purpose of this, I'm trying to give you some understanding of the kind of things you would see when it comes to mobile app design briefs. And also, I spoke about onboarding screen or sign up screen. Obviously, you need to be able to create an account on the platform, log in, log out, and things like that. So yeah, the design goals. They said intuitive navigation, ensure users can easily move between screens, engaging visuals, use appealing colors, icons, and typography to create an enjoyable experience. You need to convey security and reliability by using clean layout. This is an important aspect of design. The less bug in terms of design, the less design mistakes your UI has, the more trusted it is. People are able to trust you by when they see how much effort you take to deliver a clean product, basically. Okay. So usually when you receive a design brief for something like this, it comes with visual assets, branding, brand kits, or brand guide. But I'm just kind of taking it from scratch. So the first thing you want to do is you request for those assets if you've not been given them. But in our case, I think we can pick some images online, or some we can use free, or what's it called, stock images or open license images. But before that, when you receive a brief, a design brief, now I want to touch on something very important because it's one thing I know new designers struggle with. They keep asking, how do we go about from that brief to designing? How do we get ideas? How do we get inspiration? I don't know what to show. I don't know where to start from. Felix talked about this last class. He mentioned getting inspiration from Pinterest. So Pinterest or other sites like Pinterest, it's very important that you get um, ideas or you feed your eyes with sample platforms. It stimulates your brain to start thinking of what you can implement in that case. So for example, I'm going to go to Pinterest now. We are going to make what we call a mood board. I'll get to the Figma, but let's just get to Pinterest first. I'm going to make a mood board. A mood board is basically, let's look in. A mood board is basically going to be a page that shows all your ideas in one place. Okay. So let's say it's in our UI.
Huh? Thank you.
So these are some I don't know if you can see my screen yet. So these are some ideas or samples of what dating
I cannot see your screen yet.
Oh, I think it's lagging. Can you see my screen now?
No,
I'm still here. What can you see?
no screen yet.
Oh, hold on. I'm still here. Do I stop sharing? Hold on, let me stop sharing.
Okay, yes, we can see now.
Okay.
Thank you.
You can see the Pinterest, yeah?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So yeah, I just searched dating app UI and I can see images with lots of designs, existing designs when it comes to dating app UI. So basically, what I'm doing here is I'm trying to get inspiration. If I search for anything, let's just move around. So we can search for banking app. You can see bank apps screen. You could search for food ordering app. You can see some screens. So it gives you that initial source of inspiration with something for you to get started with in terms of what you need to design. Okay, let's go back to the dating app UI. If you look at some designs, you can see some samples of what I don't know if you can see this. Yeah, you can see some samples of what these apps can look like. So I don't know, this name of this app is Hola, and they have a lot of screens. I think about 20 screens here. You could see color team, you could see just like an overview of what their own design is about. Let me know if you can see the screen I'm talking about. I think what's being projected might be a bit behind.
We can see an app that has purple screen. I'm sorry, red or kind
Okay.
of
Okay.
pinkish.
Yeah, I wanted to know because I think the screen share is a bit behind.
Yeah, it's a Ola dating relationship and social media app.
Okay, perfect. So I could save this image. Again, if you see images of ideas or inspiration, you save them in your PC. You might see something like this. Don't really like it. Something else like this. Again, I'm looking for ideas. I'm looking for inspiration of what exists out there. I save this. Let's see. I want to set up a couple before we go to Figma. So that's 3. That's 4. So that should do it. So I'm going to copy this brief now and take it over to Figma. Stop sharing. Let me know when you can see my Figma. I can see the chart is still behind. It's still on my browser.
Yeah, I can see your Figma now.
Okay. Okay, I'm just pasting in the design brief. So we have the direction here on Figma. Hold on. Okay, so I'll just bring in the instructions from the design brief here, so we can know what we are designing for. So this is a new Figma file. One of the things I did beforehand was I worked on the style guide. I didn't want to spend too much time there on because Felix covered it again in the last class. Again, I believe that we still have access to those videos. But we need to kind of spend more time in looking at how those ideas are transformed, how those ideas are converted to actual designs. So yeah, to mind this is just me bringing the design brief in here. I think it might be best to even bring a screenshot so it's easier to read. Just give me a minute. I don't like that stuff. Okay, this is better. So this is design brief. Yeah, this is design brief. So like I said, this is a new Figma file. What I did beforehand is, aside from the styling, I created separate pages. The first page I call the mood board. The second page I call the design assets. Someone is asking, how do you change the darkening? So that's less important currently. We have the lo-fi page, you have the style guide, you have the component, you have the high fidelity design. So this is what I spoke about, what Felix covered in the last class. He was able to show you how to create style guides. Again, similar stuff applies here. The difference with what he worked on and what we have here today is that the styling, especially typography, the font size has to be different. You can't use the same font size that you use for websites for mobile. So these font sizes are less than what you would have in websites. Okay. So I'm going to go back to the mood board now. We have the brief there. I'm going to bring in the images we saved from Pinterest. Can you see my screen? Just help me confirm if you can see my screen. Let me know if you are following me. I don't want to be too fast. Okay. If at any point in time, what you are seeing on the screen is different from what I'm saying, just let me know, so I can slow down and let the screen share catch up with where I'm at. So currently, I've brought the designs that we saved from Pinterest. I've brought them into our Figma file, so we can take a closer look at them. So from what you can see, we have this is the first concept, this is the second concept, this is the third, and this is the fourth. So you can see the difference in designs across 3 or 4 of them, rather. You could see this first concept. They have more, what's it called? They are more image focused. They tend to use more pictures. Right from the splash screen, you can see an image of a lady holding a guy in the background. So again, I'll explain what I mean by splash screen. As this is first concept, this is second concept. You can see they tend to use more populish and fun-like vibe going on there. Then you have this one, that the Hula that we saw initially. They are not as much about pictures. I think they are more about how clean the design looks. Then we have this fourth one that is more about cards. It's a lot about having people swipe cards, show different profiles as card, and stuff like that. But let's come back to this. So I'm going to use this to kind of explain some type of screens you have when you're doing mobile design. So the first screen that you see when you start your the first screen you see when you start your design is what you know as your splash screen. So this screen right here, hold on, just get this. So this screen right here is what you call your splash screen. It's the very first screen that you're going to see when you launch your application. If you open your bank app, now you're going to see the bank's logo. That's the splash screen. If you open any application, the first screen is just the splash screen is the first screen. So most times when you open an application for the first time, you're going to be met with some onboarding screens before they ask you, where does it go? Before they ask you to log in, they might give you some information about what the app is about or what the business is about. So those screens are what you know as onboarding screens. Then after that, you get to meet your login screen, your sign up screen. Again, you can clearly see the title of the screens from what the screens are about from the title. So we have the profile, you have maybe gallery, you have discover, you have filters, you have card for swiping, you have a match screen, you have a profile preview screen. Again, I told you there are lots of screens when it comes to mobile app. But basically, we are going to pick a few of these to cover, and yeah, we should be good. So this is some idea on what we are going to be designing. So again, we have our inspiration, we have our mood board down, we know a couple of the screens that we need. The next thing would be to get our design assets. For the purpose of this class, I'll just get, hold on, let me get this logo. I'm going to get a logo. Yeah, this is the transparent logo I could find. Yeah, so I got this logo online from Google. This is for Tinder. Again, for the purpose of the class, this is not Tinder's app. We have when you have a brief, a design brief, you're going to receive this asset from the client or employer. They're going to give you their logo, they're going to give you their brand guide and things like that. So for the purpose of this class, let's say this is the logo we're working with. We're going to have, let's say, again, this information is what you're going to receive beforehand. I'm just improvising for the purpose of this class. So for color, I already created some colors in the style guide. I think we have the primary color somewhere here. You can use this. Again, if you needed a refresher on how to create color and styling, you could look at the last video by Felix. He mentioned how we're able to create styles. Okay, I'm just selecting some colors that we can use. Okay, just checking that everyone is still following. Okay, so now that we kind of know what we have this asset, again, it can be a lot more than this when they give you a brand asset. Some clients have a full branding kit ready. They have logos, they have assets, they have color guide, they have typography, and they have a lot more. So these colors I used are the same colors I already created here in the style guide. Again, don't be scared at this style guide. It's kind of shows different tones for the colors I've chosen already. And the typography we're going to be using is a font called BR Cobain. Already created the styles for those. So back to the design asset, anything regarding design asset, we're going to bring it here. Now let's go to our low fidelity. So again, as a designer, you might have this preference where you need to use pen and paper to sketch your designs, or you can do it on your PC. But we're having a screen share. So the best way I could show you this is to create some digital versions of what a sketch would look like, or a low fidelity basically of what the screens can look like. So the first thing is you're going to create a frame. Okay. Once we click the frame button here, you could see list of devices on your right. The first thing you can see is list of phone devices, which is good already because we're able to pick one and start designing with that. So I'm going to pick any of these. Usually, I like to go for 375. That is the iPhone 13 mini. Hold on, let me just zoom in. Yeah. So this is the kind of the frame or the shape of what your device looks like when you have it in your hand. So we have this frame here. We also want to, let me get back to the brief, bring a copy of the brief here. So we're able to see what we're working on. So big. Yes, so we are supposed to show some key screens. Let's see, we're supposed to show profile screen. I'll just rename this frame I just created as profile. So it might not be the first screen of the app, but let me just list it based on what we have here. So we have this match screen, let's call it match screen. What else do we have? We have charts. Charts. What do we have next? We have Discover. And we have the onboarding. I wouldn't worry too much about what I'm listing and what I'm naming them yet. Reason being is that we are still in low fidelity. We are still sketching. We are still trying to put things down. So I know that we want to show 5 key features. Yeah. Like I said, when it comes to mobile design, each of these 5 features could have a series of screens. Each of them could have 5 sub-screens. And you should be ready to identify or draw that out, basically. You don't want to say, oh, I'm designing 5 features, I need to only show 5 screens. No. 5 screens can have, each of them, they can easily have 5 screens each under them, and you find yourself doing 25 screens. But yeah, I would like to start with the beginning. The first thing first, when you open your application, is the onboarding. So onboarding, like I said, you have your splash screen. Hold on. It's very good for you to list out the screens before you start designing, because you're preparing your mind that this is the number of screens I have to get to. Some people just start one screen, they design one. I can delete the rest of the screens and say, I want to design one screen at a time. But then I don't have any insight or any thoughts on what I have to design next after I finish the screen I'm working on. So it's best that you list out, again, the screens or the flow that you are going to use for these screens. So I mentioned we have the splash screen. We could have onboarding. We could have, what's it called? Login. Let's call it sign up for new user. Sign up. We could have login. So this is kind of how the first set of screens you're going to see. Again, I'm trying to be mindful of time, but mobile app design might be more, because it has a large number of screens, it might take you a longer time to get across to everything. But yeah, we're going to do it. So splash screen, what do you want to show? What do you want to show in your splash screen? I want to show, why is this? I need to bring in. I want to show logo. Okay, I want to show my logo. Oh, why is that's not the right color? Okay. So you don't have to worry about styling when you are sketching. That's the good part about sketching. You should be able to like rapidly, they call it rapid prototyping, rapid sketching. You should be able to like put your concepts down before you do the actual design, so that you're able to get past that ideation stage fast enough. And then you're able to get to the actual design. So I want to show a logo. I want to show, what do you call it? I want to show some intro guide. I want to show, sign up form. I want to show my screen, just hold on. There we go. Yeah, I want to show login form. Okay. So this is kind of like me trying to break, excuse me trying to break things down into what I want to show. Because your logo is going to be an image, when it comes to low fidelity or sketching, you need to be able to represent elements with the right shape or the right symbols. So my logo is going to be an image. I don't have to put that. I can just put an image there. Intro guide. So what do I want to do for my intro guide? I want to use happy pictures to show people being connected. Again, this is just sketching. So I know there are we'll still get to the point where you need to consider grids, styling, spacing, and all. We're not there yet. So you're allowed to freestyle in your sketching part. You're allowed to go wild in these parts of your design. So I can use this to show image. I could use, I want to show a text beneath the image. So let me just use this to kind of symbolize that there's going to be a text there. I want to show that after you get the information, maybe there's a button that takes you to the next screen. Oh, let me know if you're still following, if I've not gone too far. And I can just go back a bit. So these are kind of what I want to show for the intro guide. So when it comes to the sign up, we know that we are going to show forms. I'm going to use shapes to symbolize the forms. I'm going to show maybe I can show a text. I can show maybe email address. I can show name. I can show passwords. I'll just duplicate this. Yeah, so this is like a form. And also I could have a button somewhere here. So this means kind of creating the basic shape or the basic structure in what I want to design. You're still going to get to what that design looks like. Okay, in terms of sign up, we have most applications using social sign up where they are able to use maybe Google or Facebook login. So you might want to show social signups. It could be as buttons, it could be as icons. I'll just put a couple of icons here. Okay, so that's for sign up form. So for login form, similar to this, but we have less fields. So I'm going to take some from the sign up. I'm going to place those right here. Let's say I take the buttons and the social icons as well, and I place those here. So you can see that the form is going to look shorter. You can kind of visualize and start imagining what the structure of these screens are going to look like just by seeing this. So that way, it's becoming a reality to you. It's coming to your mind of what that design is going to look like. So that's for the onboarding side. So let's pick another. Let's pick the home and match. I don't think we will get to cover all this for the sake of time, but let's see. So for match, before you get to the matches, you need to go to your home. For most of these apps, actually, the home is kind of where you get to swipe right, swipe left, or you get to see a list of potential, what's it called? Matches, okay? So I'm going to, let me just call this home. Okay, let's say match, what else? View profile or user profile. I'm looking at someone's profile. What else? What else? I think we could have the chat here. Let me bring this here. Okay. I'm going to leave this down there so that we are able to cover at least some of the screens. So for the home screen, what's the first thing I want to see once I log in? I want to see, again, if you remember the features we listed here, you want people to have, you want the app to be intuitive. You want it to help users connect. So those are like key features or key features of this product. So by default, mobile app, you need to be able to navigate across screens. Let me put it simply. You need to be able to go from one screen to the other. So from understanding, especially looking at our mood board, you can see across all your screens, elements or components that they share. You could see the navigation, you could see the header, you could see the icons, you could see, you could see those key elements. Those are what you want to communicate, okay? So forgive me if I'm trying to go as specific as possible. I want you to get the core parts, how those designs magically appear. So you could use, again, using shapes to identify where you want to place elements. Again, you might be able to sketch or name this out. Like you can write the name. I want this to be a navigation bar. So it's easier to understand. But over time, you're not going to have the Yeah, you're not going to have the time to label every single thing. That's why in low fidelity, we have less text, because images or shapes are supposed to communicate what the elements are for, okay? So if we have this here, we could also have, we're looking at the home now, so that means we might have a header. Again, lo-fi is not final. Things could change when you start doing the actual design. You might have the header, you might have, what's it called? Let's say you have a card allowing you to swipe, okay? Or you have you can see multiple accounts in the form of grades. So we have not decided on what we are going with. I'm just giving you ideas. You might have a grid listing of different profile, where you are able to see multiple profiles at the same time, and you're able to choose from them. Or you might have the card style I spoke about, where you have just one card and you are able to either swipe right or swipe left, which is kind of the norm for applications like this. You have the person's image in bold and they tell you to swipe right, swipe left. You might want to be as specific as showing some things on the card so that you are tracking. I'm going to just label this a different color, excuse me. I'm going to label this a different color so that I know that there are two actions on either side, maybe swiping left, swiping right. I'm also able to show where I want the user name to be. Let's say I want the name to be somewhere on the top or somewhere on the center. It's your choice actually. So what happens if I swipe right and it's a match? Usually if you swipe left, they show you the next profile for apps like this. But if you swipe right, what happens? You can see in your example, again, this is the reason why mood board is very important. You can see in your examples, this is an example of what a match looks like. Congrats is a match. They have this merge of two pictures and asking you to take the next step. Or you could see, I think, something like this. It's a match, send a message. Or this, it's a match, say hello. So those are like the next step of what happens after the person has been matched. So how do you even know that this is what's going to happen? If you don't do your mood board, you're not going to know the screens you need to design. Okay. So I'm going to have the next screen being for match. I'm just going to have two images. Show this side by side. Could use this for text somewhere here. And I could also have a button beneath, like CTA button. CTA, by CTA, I mean call to action. Let's say you have two call to actions. So you have two buttons. Yeah, that's kind of the structure of a match. So user profile, I want to view someone's profile maybe after we match or before we match. I could have the person's image. I could have details about the person's bio, what they like, interests, and things like that. I can show that and a lot more. So the user profile might be a bit longer than other screens. You'll find yourself having to scroll through a lot of information. So there can be a lot of write-up there. So you could just use this to show that they are looking at quite a lot of text, or the text-heavy section, let me call it that way. Yeah. So I'm going to just close this here, but again, that's kind of what the user profile would be about. Then when you have chats is just similar to what you have on WhatsApp. Let's say you have a header showing you who you're chatting with, who you're conversing with. You could have chat boxes. Could be for the message the person is sending me, the message I'm sending. So you could have a chat structure look like this. So if you use WhatsApp and other chat platforms, the sender's message is on one side, while your own message is on the other side. Then you could have this box allowing you to type your message. If you want to include emojis, you could have another action elements or so on the left here. Okay, so you can see how everything is coming to life. Things are beginning to take form and take shape. So yeah, I'll just work with these so that we are able to keep track of time. So this is basically what I would have sketched on paper. Sketching on paper allows you, again, or on tablets or digital devices, allows you try different structure. I could have 5 different designs. I could have 5 style for my splash screen. I can have 5 style for my onboarding. I can have 5 style for my sign up. But in the end, I get to pick 1 or 2 and run with it. For the sake of the class, I'm just using this one example to show you kind of a direction of what it will look like. So I'm going to take these screens down to the what's it called? High fidelity design. I won't touch much on components. Again, it's another time intensive part, but I'll try to give some examples of elements you need to use as components. So let's start one by one. Let's take the first one, the splash screen. Moving this to the right. So I want the splash screen to have the logo, and I had my logo here. Let me just bring this here. I'm just drop this here so it's easy for me to access. Okay, let's say for example, I make the splash screen to have this darker color and I bring the logo somewhere here. So another thing you need to notice is that some people tend to have animated logos where maybe the logo spins and it reveals itself. There's a whole lot of things you could try out in terms of splash screen. But for the purpose of this class, we are looking at getting the design right first before you start doing the extra. So this color, I don't like this theme. I could change the color to, so I change the color to this. This looks a lot better. You can see how their primary color takes form. Or you could try using images. Say, for example, I could get images from maybe FreePic or some other sites. Just get some images. Hold on. I have this image I want to try and use. So if I bring this image in, let's see this. Okay, I could try. I can have the logo underneath it. You can see it's looking better a bit. Why not try, let me just make it dark a bit. Too much. Yeah. Again, you get to try things out. That's the idea of being a designer. You need to be able to kind of experiment with a lot of things and see which works best. So this might be better, or the dark one might be better. Everyone has their preferences. But I'm going to leave this for now. So we can see behind, you can see the couple, and we have the logo. So this is the splash screen. This is the first screen you're going to see when you open the application. So we're still going to get to the prototype part, hopefully. But yeah, so we have this splash screen sort of done. Let's look at the next screen, which is the onboarding. So for onboarding, I'm just going to have intro or guide. Say, for example, I want to, do I have another picture? I should. So you want to use pictures that communicates what you are trying to sell, if you get what I mean. So let's say I get a picture like this coming up. Yes. And I put there. So I want to give a brief overview of what the app is selling or marketing. So this is a picture. I could say What text can I use now? Just hold on. I change this background. Let's try this. Let me know if you're following. So I'm sure that we're tracking. Okay. So I'm just moving around different styling basically at this point. Trying. Okay. Yeah. So I could have some text that says, so this is the onboarding. Let me get some copy. Okay. What do we usually when you're working with clients that have not shared anything, we tend to use things like lorem ipsum. I don't know if you're familiar with that. So lorem ipsum is like some placeholder text that allows you create copy until you have the actual copy ready. But for the sake of this class, I'm trying to just use some form of copy online so that you see what an actual copy looks like. So if I place my text here and I put something like this, again, I want to use, now I have to start thinking about styling. I have to start bringing in my text style, my color styles, and the like. So this is discover a world of connections tailored to you. Let's see. So we have a lot of style to choose from. That text looks too bold. I'm trying not to go too specific into the details, but just to give you an idea of what that design would look like once you've achieved setting up the screens. Okay. Yeah, give me a minute. Let me see what the styles. Okay, that looks good. Let me see. There's another. No, it's too small. Let's be. Okay, let's use this. So you could have this text saying discover a world of connections just for you. Again, it could have more than one onboarding screens where you are trying to explain the features of the application to user. So in that example, you might have something like a skip or swipe or other gestures that you can show here. But for this, we're going to have just one onboarding screen. And the next thing we're going to have our button. So now let me just touch on the component. When it comes to things that, again, elements that you're going to reuse, you need to make them as components. Say, for example, you want to have a button somewhere here, and you want your button style to be, let's see, something like this. Hold on. And you have a text that says, get started. We could make this button, so the colors, we could make the button, I think. Let's try that. Again, you need to be consistent in your styling. So try to be sure you're using the same styles across. Yeah. So I'm just working on creating the basic button for now. This is what the button is already looking like. The font is still big. That's okay. Looks smaller. Let's get something like 18. Much better. So you can see this button now. You're going to find out that you're going to have lots of screens that have buttons across the design. That's why you need to make your design, your button a component, because one reason you're going to reuse it. Another reason you are still going to prototype this button. You're going to make it have different states. So that's a lot, not more to cover, but different states like hover states, if you, especially when you're looking at websites, you look at clicked state, active state, and the likes. But for the purpose of this, I'm just going to use the button as it is. So say we have get started. We already have two screens from our sketch here. The next screen we need to show there would be our sign up screen. And then we can start looking at having text. You could start looking at having the what's it called, input fields. So for input fields, there are different ways you could go about it. So say, for example, I want to show, let me bring this here. I want to show email address. I'm going to make this a bit small. So for email address, have this here. Let's create an account. We'll get started. Okay, it's still a bit small. Increase the bits. Okay, so we need to have input fields. So let's say we have email address here. I'm going to remove this and make this password. Have email address, password. This password. So we have confirm password. Okay. Let's say we go straight on to, okay, we didn't have the name and the name. So let's have one more for the name. Let's call it full name. So you can see we're starting to flesh out the form and what it looks like. And again, we have reusable components. So let's say we have the button here. In this case, we can adjust the button style to look to fit the frame of the design. But basically, again, speaking about consistency, you don't want to have round buttons and square buttons in some place. You need to keep the consistency across your design. So I'm going to use a wider button, still round edged, but keeping the color and the edge of the button. So before I get to this, I need to just clean up this design. So we have the full name, email address, create password, confirm password, and this heading text. I'm just going to, let's say I move this down a bit. I could play around with some shapes. Let's say this here. Okay, so let's do this. Let's try making this a field, an outline instead of field states. I'm going to take another color. So we're starting to look more like a form down the initial low fidelity sketch. Okay. What else? What else? So we spoke about, I will still get to these icons, but let's kind of cover the important things. So we have full name, we have email address, we have create password. You could try different styles. Some people have their forms having the fields directly outside what people are supposed to fill, or you could have it inside so that people type on it. I'm going to change this color a bit. Let's say we have, how does that look? Yeah, something like that. Again, for input fields, it's something you're going to reuse, especially when you want to edit profile, you want to type in maybe some preference and stuff like that. So you might want to make this a component also. So we have a style here now. I'm going to use, I think this style works well. I'm going to use it across these other three. So I can move this maybe just out here a bit so I don't get it mixed up. Okay, I'll use this. So we have this form now. I'm going to apply auto layout to it so I can have even spacing. So you can see how compared to what we had initially, let me just bring this here. Compared to what we had initially, it's looking more and more alive, if that makes sense. You are able to start giving life to your sketches, you are able to start giving life to your designs. That way, you can start building out the actual design. So, in no way is this final yet. This could be your starting point. You could, again, I said you could have iterations of this. You could start out this. You can say, no, I don't want the name to be inside. I want it to be above. I want it to be on the line. There are different ideas you could implement there. So for example, you also want your you want to have the password icon where you're able to hide or reveal your password. You can use icons in your design. So a plugin in Figma that allows you import icons or use icons in your design. A plugin is, let's say, I don't know if Felix touched about plugins, but when you go to your Figma, you right click, you can see this feature called plugins, where you have access to different plugins based on what you want to do. So I'm going to go to a plugin called Iconify, and I'm going to search for icon. So this is the icon you could use to make your, maybe make password hidden or visible. Something like this. So if I bring this icon to my create password field, it can space this out even. Again, I want to be sure I'm using the same, I'm consistent in my color choice. Let's see. Okay. I can see some questions. So we're going to take questions after I think we cover the call screens. I think we are already how many hours in. But yeah, I'm just showing you how to flesh out your designs. Okay, so you can see design starting to take form from what you started out as your initial sketch. You could see splash screen. Again, you might have just the heading. You might have a separate paragraph further describing what you're explaining, depending on how you want to convey the feature of the app. But so we have this create an account screen. You have this get started. You might want to have, like I said, you might want to have an option for users to sign in with Google or sign in with Facebook or something like that. Again, what we can use that with, we can communicate that with buttons where we have what's it called? Social login buttons. So in what I mean by social login, say for example, we want to use Google and Facebook login, where people can use those other platforms to log in. You could have these other buttons beneath, where this button becomes, sorry, we're still in sign up. This button becomes sign up with Google, while the one beneath becomes sign up with maybe Facebook. Now, to ensure that you are able to kind of differentiate buttons or CTAs, it's not preferred to have CTAs of the same color closely following each other. So I'm going to use something else for this Google. I'm going to use dark, and I'm going to use the color for Facebook. Facebook color is, let's say, blue. So you could have this kind of social login where users can either sign up directly on the platform, or they are able to log in with social. So what I will do here is to make it more easier to understand, I will put or somewhere here. I need a smaller font. Let's say we have something like this. Oh, that's too small. Is that okay? I think it works. Okay, so you're able to show people that they can either directly fill this form. This frame shows you that you can either fill this form to sign up, or you could sign up with either of these platforms. You might want to go the extra step to add the Facebook logo or the Google icon to this to make it uniform, or you could use this style. So I'm going to bring in what's it called, either their icons. So let's say we have Google, still an iconify. I can bring in Google, I can bring in Facebook. I think this is Facebook. So let me use this. I should use the round one. Let me use the round one. Okay. So if I take this Google icon, I can put it somewhere here. You could put it before or you put it after. But let me put it close to the name. I'm going to also take this and I'm going to put it here. The reason why I brought this black version is because the button is already blue. So blue and blue is not going to work. Again, let's see what's the size. I can make this button size, this icon size increase so it's more obvious, but not too big. I'm going to make this 20 as well. So you could see, is this the Facebook blue? I think it's a bit darker, that if I'm sure. Okay. So you're able to flesh it things out. Basically, people can see that they can either create an account directly or they can sign up with these social platforms. So yeah, this is basically how you starting out to flesh your designs. You can see the difference between these two. You can go as much as making this frame. You might not want to have just white. You might want to give it some form of color or some other styling too. But again, no, that's not the style I want to choose. But again, it's basically about you building out on your sketch. You start with your sketch, then you move down the line. So this is like a pinkish, but yeah, it's not readable as you can see. So I'm going to revert to the white background. So the next screen is similar to the sign up screen. We have the login screen. We are able to have something similar to what we had in the sign up. So I can duplicate this easily and say, something like welcome back. Welcome back. Login to your account. Okay. So now as an existing user, I don't need to put my name and we confirm password. I can just use email and I can use email address, enter password, something like this. But yeah, and this CTA would then become login because I'm already an existing user. So I call this login. And then these other ones can also switch to login with Google. So usually we might want to make it uniform. You can say continue with Google so that you have basically the same button across both. So if I have continue, it's missing a U. If I have something like this, okay. I think I see a comment saying you could have continue with continue with Facebook or sign up. So whichever you want to use, I'm going to use sign up and login to kind of differentiate which screen we are on. So I'm going to use login with Google. I'm going to use login with Facebook. So someone mentioned about create. So again, get started. You can use create accounts. CTAs are usually based on what copy you have been provided, but again, I'm just showing you how the screens look. So say, for example, we have this screen. I'm going to just bring it down a bit so that it's kind of aligned in the middle of the page. You can see the difference and the similarity between these two pages. I don't have an account yet. I'm back and I want to just log in. But yeah, so this is what the screens are looking like. I think I'm going to touch one more screen and then I can take questions because we are way past time. So again, you could see how each part of this mobile design process can be time consuming because you have to first think of the idea, you have to sketch it out, then you have to start building it out. But definitely it's something that when you do over time, you are able to do most of these things in a couple of minutes, a couple of seconds, and you're able to move faster. I'm just taking out time to explain specifically so that you're able to understand most of these things. So I'm going to do one more screen and then we can take questions. So the screen I'm going to do would be, let's say the actual home screen, where we are able to look at, let's say, I need to look at a profile and get an image. Okay, getting this image. So let's say you have this image and you want to either, you can either have this action where the user swipes or they click these action buttons on the side. So let's say this user is called, I'm going to add some details for the profile. Let's just put the name, Cecilia. You can see the text. I'm going to fix that in a bit. So this is Sarah. Okay. Now we have an image. I don't want to go into too much core design stuff, but I want this image text to be visible. So I'm just going to put some form of gradients on the image to make the text more visible. So I have this. I could put, could have the name somewhere here. Okay, so usually you might have some form of information, let's say Lagos, Nigeria. Lagos, Nigeria. Let's try something like this. Or you might want to say something like what the person does. What's it called? Sales manager. So depending on which feature you're trying to prioritize, why I'm changing this to sales manager, I was thinking, why not have other icons? Let's say if I can find flag. Yeah. So I could have the Nigerian flag instead of spelling out the name so we know where the person is from. I can have this flag beside the name. So this is kind of, instead of me taking up the space saying Lagos, Nigeria, I can easily communicate that this person is from this country by using the flag. So now I have basic information about the person. I might want to even go further and add a full, like a summary of the bio this person likes, so and so. But again, that's based on preference. So what are the action buttons? You want to have two buttons. You want to have maybe cancel or approve. Say, for example, we want to get an icon. Let's call this cancel or reject. You can use any of this basically. So let's say we have this and we have select. I need keep my Figma closed up. Can you still see my screen? Yeah. So we want to select I'm not sure you can see my screen. Okay. So I have two icons that show if you selected the person or you rejected the person. So usually you might want to signify selected by green and rejected by something like red. But again, it depends on how this fits into your frame. So I'm going to have the green somewhere here. I'm going to have this somewhere here. So you can see why I'm trying to flesh this out. It still does not look great. Let's try something else here. I'm going to frame this and change this to white. Make this rounded. Be sure I'm using the right size. Okay, so if I make this rounded, it looks a lot better. Looks a lot better. So we can have this on the sides. Again, I can align this with auto layout. You can see how much better it looks. So users are ready to tell, they're able to tell what action they need to take here. Again, you could style this a lot more. There are lots of ways you could style this. I could make it black buttons, or I could reduce this a bit so it's blended. But for the sake of this, let me just show you some key things you need to show. So you might placement of the name, you can place it again where you want users to quickly get information is where you need to place your information. If you feel the buttons are too big, you could reduce them a bit. If you feel they are too small, you could increase it. Yeah. So in terms of navigation, let me just touch on that, then we can take questions. In terms of navigation, you want to identify the screens you are going to show. Say, for example, you have your home, you have your profile, you have your discover, you have all those separate screens. How do you get to kind of how you have your header menu? How do you get to those other screens? So I'm going to kind of divide this into, let's say divide into 4, see how it works. Okay, so if I have this into 4, I need to change this heading too. So let's give a description here so that we know what we're looking at. It's making this better a bit, so it looks much better. So you could call this discover new users. And people are able to swipe and find profiles. So coming back here, let's say we have the home, we have what else can we show? We can show charts. We can show what's it called? Explore or something like that. Then we can show profile. Okay. So these are like the navigation that we can show. Again, we can use icons to represent them. So I'm going to get some icons. I'm going to get home. Again, try to be consistent in your styling. Yeah, home. I'm going to get icons or charts. I'm going to get flow. I can use something like a lens here for me to just kind of navigate. Let me use search. There it is. Profile, I can use a user icon for profile. Okay, any of this works. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to have, let's say I reduce the font sizes for this, it's too big. Okay, and I make this. So I'm creating icons for each of them. I can bring each of them into where they are supposed to be. So you can start seeing the navigation come into frame, basically. So you could style this out a lot better than this. So let me try this. So if I make this darker, we have a darker color somewhere here. And I can make this all, say, white. So you can see your navigation coming into shape. Again, this is just basically initial design. You could make yours a lot better than this. Let's see, I make this spaced out a bit. So that way you're able to navigate to other pages from here. And I know there's a lot of other things to cover. There are other screens, there's prototyping. So if you want to preview your design, what you could do, you could easily look at the preview button. Okay, I'm going to select this and you look at Figma preview. So these were the sketches we had. If we can go past this. So this is what your design looks like in mobile. Say, for example, I want to preview in, let me go to prototype. I want to preview with a device. I'm going to use the 13 mini. This is what it's going to look like if you are previewing on a phone. You can see your design starting to look like a mobile app. So this preview is what I spoke about, prototyping, that you are able to share with others to test out your design. And you can see how things are becoming fleshed out into an actual design already. Yeah. So I'm going to stop here to take some questions. I really want to answer some questions, and hopefully we'll be able to continue on this in the future classes. Okay. Okay. If you have your questions, you can leave them in the chat. I'm going to start with some of the questions we already have. So someone asked if another app like Canva can do this instead of Figma. Canva is mainly for graphics, so I would advise, because Figma already has most of the settings and structure in place, I would advise you use Figma instead. It's just going to make your work a lot easier. Okay. Someone also asked, is it possible to, how do you merge a button and a write-up to avoid them moving separately? So I was able to do that using auto layouts. I was able to align it properly so that the button stayed in the center of the text of the button stayed in the center of the frame itself. Yeah, I can see the mistakes regarding CTA and using create instead of get started. Again, CTAs are particular to what your content person is trying to use to communicate. It varies. Some people might use sign up now. Some people might use get started. Some people might use create accounts. It's depending on how the content person you're working with and how they want to communicate that. Another good question is, okay, how did I preview a device? So when I went to prototype, we didn't get to cover prototype, but I was able to select in this prototype setting, I was able to select which device I want to preview on. It applies to other designs as well. So I was able to select iPhone 13 and I can preview with that device. So another important question that was covered is, when designing, do you consider competitors? So that's part of your user research. User research is broad. You're not just looking at, you can do on competitor analysis. You can include that in your mood board. You can take screenshots of existing platforms and get ideas from them. So I didn't use competitors for this because I was able to get sketches or images from Pinterest. But yeah, usually you can look at competitors and see what you can improve on, what they are doing wrong, and how you can be better there. So someone says, how can I use mood boards to make my design unique? I mean, not make my design look like I replicated them. So ideally, if you notice, the only use or reason why I created a mood board was for me to get some form of direction. So you're going to move from knowing nothing about what you're planning to design to knowing what you need to design. How do you go about that? You need to see what has been done. So I'm not saying you should use mood board to recreate exactly what those samples are. No, you're not trying to copy designs. You're trying to have idea of what you are to show. You need to have an idea of the screens to show. You need to have an idea of the sections to show in your screen. For example, if you've not done login screen before, how do you know login has social login, Google and Facebook, and sign up also has the same buttons? You might feel it's only for sign up, it's not for login. But you can see basically that it's something that applies to both login and signing up as well. So mood board is supposed to basically give you direction. It's not for you to copy. It's to give you direction on how to go about it. I think that's it. Are there any other question? Okay. There are no other questions. So one thing I would like us to work on, I know we were not able to cover a lot of the screens. Again, it's really time intensive, but we have these basic onboarding screens. I want us to start getting the hang of it. If we can create our own versions, I'm going to move this aside so that we know that it's onboarding. If we can start creating our own version of the onboarding screen and share that on the Slack so that we can review and understand that, okay, so far, everything that has been taught has been fully understood. I think we can move from there. Yeah. So if there are no other questions, I'll hand over to Adebimpe to close us out.
Wow, that's massive. Thank you so very much, Franklin. That's very massive. I'm very sure that a lot of the students have gotten so much information today. It's crazy. Thank you so much, Franklin, for coming on the call. Again, I'm just going to do a couple of shout outs. So first shout out goes to Felix, the idea behind this program, and shout out to Freeman Dojo for making sure that this program is live. Then shout out to Franklin for taking out time from his busy schedule, so making sure that you have a interesting understanding on how designing for mobile works and how you can take advantage of Figma to achieve this vision from low fidelity to getting your structured high fidelity mode. All right. And finally, I also want to shout out to Reeple. Reeple is a cross-border payment platform that makes sure that freelancers and people or businesses are able to get remittances. So if you're a freelancer and you need transfers being made from abroad, maybe North America, Europe, or other parts of the world, you can get paid easily. So go to Reeple.ai. So that is Reeple.ai to get started. To start using the platform. So thank you very much. We are going to end the live stream now. If you have any questions for Franklin, you can post it in the community group. And if you'd like to join the group community, you can still post in the make sure that you send a message in the comment section, and we'll be sure to add you. All right. Thank you so much. Cheers, guys.